Have you ever felt like you're being watched, even when you're alone? If so, then you probably were, by your phones, computers, and other technology, by the government. Domestic surveillance is the National Security Agency's job to keep track of interpersonal communications, and this was set forth by George Bush shortly after 9/11. Now, I didn't know much about this, like why it happened or how it happened, until I started researching this topic, and now I realize how complicated it really is. Domestic surveillance has sparked a lot of controversy since it began in 2001. And one side says that they want to be safe from terrorism, and they're willing to give up their privacy to do so. And the other side says that this method isn't very effective, and they want to protect their constitutional right to privacy. So the two inherent issues of this topic are how domestic surveillance affects safety of Americans, and whether privacy is more effective or is more important than safety. The two sides have very different opinions, and both have valid arguments to back up their opinions. So the first inherent issue is safety, and the reason domestic surveillance started was to stop terrorism, as I said before. And Michael Morell of the Washington Post said, quote, "It would likely have prevented 9/11 and has potential to prevent the next 9/11. And this is what a lot of people say that are in favor of domestic surveillance, because they just want to prevent or at least reduce terrorism in the U.S. Fred Fleets of the Center of Security Policy says that there's not really much room for the people that do the domestic surveillance to abuse their power, so they can't really look too far into your privacy, because they are very closely monitored by other people. The other side of this says that domestic surveillance is not very effective. According to Peter Bergen of the National Security Program, 225 people that were associated with Al-Qaeda have been analyzed since 9/11, and that's using traditional investigative methods, such as use of informants and tips from local communities. As for domestic surveillance, there has been minimal success, and this is partially because of the Patriot Act, which says that people cannot, or the people that are doing the domestic surveillance can't listen into people's phone calls unless it's outside of the U.S. They can only take information such as how long a phone call was, when it was made, or to whom it was made. So the other problem with domestic surveillance is privacy. Sorry. So we are all impulsive sharers. We use texting and calling and the internet to share our lives with everybody else, like our friends and family. And especially teenagers like to do this a lot. So we have a lot of publicity, and that's by our own free will. The difference between social media and domestic surveillance is transparency. So with domestic surveillance, we don't really know when it's happening or by whom we're being watched. So Kevin Kelly of Wired Magazine proposed that we should use coveillance, and this is people watching each other instead of the government watching people. So we basically know when we're being watched and by whom, and this makes us more comfortable with the issue. And the other side says that it's our constitutional right to have privacy. According to the Pew Research Center, 80% of people strongly agree with the fact that people should be concerned with domestic surveillance. Even U.S. politicians whose emails were hacked by Russian intelligence were not okay with it, even though they're the ones that are doing it to us to keep us safe. There are a lot of possible changes that may come in the future, but it's still a very controversial issue. And in conclusion, there are valid arguments on both sides of the topic on the effectiveness and the issue of privacy of domestic surveillance. And the two important issues are privacy and safety. And always remember, whether you like it or not, you're never alone.